Welcome here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, live from Borio's Restaurant, 8891 McDonnells Parkway in Cicero, New York, with Rob Drummond, formerly of Syracuse, the CFL and the NFL's Philadelphia Eagles as well. And as always, Rob, we've been back on the field a lot of different times throughout the last year plus, but this is the first time being out at Borio's. What do you think of the view so far?
Beautiful view out here. I mean, unbelievable. I never knew this place was out here, but I think they have to come now because of the view. You know? But it's nice out here.
And you said as far as fishing, you haven't fished in a while, but you saw what they have here, and you obviously eat the fish. But
it's a huge array of fish in these lakes. But I told myself, and with my sons, at some point this year, that I definitely want to take them out fishing and enjoy the experience. Because I knew I used to do it when I was younger, but it's something I definitely want to experience with my boys and take them fishing.
And looking at the fact of having an experience of doing something, Scott Shafer has had the experience of being a head coach for the first time. He's got a year under his belt. You have known him on a personal level. I've known him on a personal level. What did you take away from his first season?
Learning experience. I mean, going into the ACC blindly, not knowing what to expect, understanding your team, but, now that you're the head man taking control, it's a lot different, I can tell you. I think Scott did a good job. Going 7-6 in the ACC is something to be proud of, but it's also something to build on. From Syracuse standpoint right now, he understands, and we as fans understand also, that he needs to get bigger. And by bigger, I mean he has the athletes right now that can play with these guys from the SEC, but he needs to get the big linemen, the guys up front that can actually move, run, pull. Right now, we don't have that. We don't have that in place. But I think with the recruiting he does, the coach he has in place, and the atmosphere and feeling I get from what Syracuse is trying to do, he'll get it done.
When you look at this past season and what they were able to put together, obviously you were a running back at Syracuse through your career. What did you take away from Jerome Smith, a man who decided to forgo his last year that he would have had eligibility? What did you take away from him being a 1,000-yard back and then being a 13-touchdown back?
Well, a great season from Jerome. He went out there and played each game with every running back should play, which every player should play. That's what heart and desire. He got the advice from someone that told him that he should come out this year. Should I have told him to stay another year and try and put himself in a better position to go into the NFL? I can't say that. That's that young man's future. That's that young man's drive and desire, what he wanted to do. So, best of luck to him. Right now, he's still on the team in Atlanta right now and has a chance of making the team. So I think he made the choice that was the best choice for Jerome Smith, and I can respect that.
When there is that opportunity to leave early and go and then you're not drafted, how do you look back at something like that? Because that's happened to other guys before where you make that decision of whatever you were told at the time. I spoke with Jerome. He doesn't regret a minute of it. But when those situations occur, how have you kind of seen, because you've known so many guys, how do you respond to something like that when you were told something different?
Not getting drafted has got to sting a lot for a player. I was fortunate to be drafted, so I would know what that feeling is. But I can also say this about Jerome Smith. He has his college degree. So you should be very, very proud of that. So, in one moment, he wasn't proud of the fact that he didn't get drafted. He had to sting a lot. But you know what? He got a chance to walk across that stage and get his college diploma. And a lot of professional athletes, whether it be football, basketball, baseball, whatever it would be, can't say that. When
you look at his style and his ability, everybody's always said that he is slower, but the man ran a 4.58 and a 4.63. The 4.84 was technically not what it was supposed to be. He had put his arm up, and they started the clock a little bit quick, so when he went to pro day, he obviously got it down 2-3 seconds less. When you see a big back like him run a 4.58 and a 4.63, is that something that you think is above average? How do you view something like that?
I really don't go off time and things of that nature, because that's what I call, there's game speed and there's practice speed. When you run to time all these guys in 40-yard dash, that's practice speed. When you put them on the field, look at Jerome Smith's run. I think it was against Clemson when he had that 70-yard run. Pulled away from those guys that they were standing still. So you can sit here and tell me he runs a 4.8, a 4.6, a 4.7, whatever it may be. I saw the man play. The man is just like Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice ran a 4.7 at the combine. Look what he did for the NFL.
And when things like that happen, Jerry Rice's son is trying to make a team, and Jerry Rice was a Division III player. So when guys come out of Syracuse and maybe don't have the respect of an Alabama, of a Florida, of an FSU, but they do what they do in the NFL, there's obviously longevity of a Syracuse player in the NFL, and you had your time in the NFL. When you look at the history of Syracuse, is there anything a fan has to be upset about when obviously something's going right in Syracuse to go out the way that they do and be successful?
I wouldn't say a fan really should be upset, but one thing I look at is at one point we were one of the dominant teams of prominence. We started back in the mid-'80s, when I got to Syracuse, and we built off with Coach Matt gave us, but the Greg Robinson era, I think, set us back a little bit. I won't talk about that. But, I think we're to the point now where Syracuse is gaining respect across the country that they deserve. So these players put in just as much hard work as the players across the country put in, and people need to understand that. Rome wasn't built in one day. People need to understand that. And it's going to take time. But I think the hard work, Scott Shafer as the head coach, and just the tutelage and what he brings to this team is something that Syracuse really needed at this point. And I think Syracuse will be fine going forward.
Making that decision to leave and go into the ACC, obviously you need the talent. It's no longer an option of recruiting. You have to have that talent because of FSU, because of Miami, because of even Boston College and what they've brought in lately, and the Pittsburghs of the world, and Duke and what they've done. Was this the right place for them to be in your mind? I mean, do you think they could kind of grow into a place here? Because the SEC, I think, we can agree, is the best of the best.
Hands on.
So the ACC, was that a viable option if you were sitting in that seat and saying, out of everywhere they could have gone, that'd be a place to go?
I mean, I can talk like this about this subject as a businessman, and I can talk about it as a fan, and I can talk about it as a former player. From the business aspect, it was one of the greatest decisions Syracuse ever made because now they get recruits, and get exposure up and down the East Coast.
Right.
From a player standpoint, I think it puts us in a great position to be able to go out there and play against the best competition we possibly can play. Not just Penn State, not just Boston College, not just Pittsburgh, not just teams in the Northeast Hemisphere, but teams also down in the South. We've got the Florida States, the Clemsons, the Georgia Tech. So now we get that much more exposure across the country. Whereas now, if I'm a recruit, they got this 5-star, 4-star, 3-star tier recruit. I mean, once I was in Chicago last week, and the guy that invented that told me it's all bogus anyway. So it depends on what you're getting recruited. So now Syracuse can land these 3-star, 4-star, 5-star recruits, and compete with the big boys. And it's like, we used to always say this in meetings. It's about when you come to a game, when you come into a situation, do you stand up or sit down? You have the choice. Syracuse right now, to me, it seems like they want to stand up. So stand up and be accountable for it. Be accountable for what you're doing on and off the football field, and that's what it's going to make you a champion. That's what made us a champion back when I played.
Scott Shafer as the head coach, you were under Coach Mack.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at Scott Shafer and what Syracuse is trying to do, is there a better person that fits the mold? Even though he's not from Syracuse, is there a better coach to fit the mold, or is he the guy when you look at what Syracuse is trying to do?
I said that about Scott Shafer years before he even became the head coach, because you just see him, because I coached his son out at FM, not in coach, but I also trained him, Wolfgang, but the drive, the desire, the passion, the fortitude to be able to go out there and make a mistake and make these kids understand that it's okay to make a mistake, you're not perfect, but learn from that mistake and try and correct it the next time so you don't make those same mistakes. That's something that Coach Shafer instills in these young kids. That's something Coach Shafer instills in his coaching staff, and that's me as a former player, and as long as I played, a lot of coaches didn't get that. You have to get into the mind of these young kids, because you have to remember, these kids are 18, 19, 21. They're young adolescents, and they need somebody to gravitate towards. They need somebody to believe to. They need something to believe to. If something goes wrong, they can go out there and just, correct it, and be well next time. And that's one thing that he brought to the table that I haven't seen at SU coach in a long time.
Even though it's only been one season, when you look at them out on the field, can you already feel that air changing? Because, you live in one of the best eras ever of Syracuse football, the last undefeated team. When you look at this team now, what type of atmosphere do you feel when you stand on that field?
About having pride in yourself, standing straight up with your shoulders held high, believing that you're capable of being just as good as the person you line up against. So what, you got beat by Florida State as bad as you did. So what, you got beat by Clemson as bad as you did. You know what? You live to fight another day, and that's what it's about. It's about being able to go out there and take these kids and make them understand that just because you lost today doesn't mean you'll lose again tomorrow. So go out there and work, but what you do between today and tomorrow is what's going to make the difference, and that's what Scott Shafer is instilling in these kids.
Robert Drummond, formerly of the Syracuse Orange, the NFL and the CFL, here with Dan Tortora, live from Borio's 8891 McDonnells Parkway in Cicero, New York. Right here with you, Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, wakeupcalldt.com. We'll be back. Plenty more from Rob. We're going to talk about a lot of different things. Doug Marone, the difference between him and Scott Shafer, this incoming 2014 class, and so much more. Make sure if you have a question to go to the Back on the Field page of wakeupcalldt.com and ask Rob and I as soon as you possibly can. We appreciate it, and thank you so much for tuning in.